Version 12 relies exclusively on INI files to store settings. It also uses INI files to save data for exporting and importing. To avoid problems with formatting and default characters, when using different regional settings in Windows, version 12 forces all programs to use US-centric settings, as shown in the information on the screen.
Welcome to this tutorial on ALCDEFSubmit. It's a program that works with MPO Canopus version 12 to generate files of dense asteroid light curve photometry that are submitted to the ALCDEF website for use by other researchers. ALCDEF stands for Asteroid Light Curve Data Exchange Format, which is a standard for storing and distributing raw dense asteroid light curve photometry. In this case, a dense data set is 30 to 100 or more images taken at roughly the same interval over many hours on the same night for a given asteroid. The ALCDEF standard features a list of keywords used to define a specific value. Some keywords are required for every submission, while others are optional. Each line in the text file follows the familiar style of keyword equals value. An ALCDEF file consists of one or more light curve blocks, each consisting of 2 or 3 parts. The first part is the metadata block. This defines a unique combination of the submitting author's name, the object's name, the approximate mid-date and time of the data in the light curve block, and the filter used. In MPO Canopus, this would be a session. Note the keyword start metadata that is used to mark the beginning of the section. At the end of the metadata block is the comparison star block, and it has information about the comparison stars used for differential photometry. While optional, including this section is strongly encouraged. Note the end metadata keyword at the end of the comp star section. The last and required part is the data block. Each line in this section gives the full Julian date, magnitude, and error in magnitudes. The standard urges the raw, uncorrected data be listed. In other words, no correction for light time or converting magnitudes to unity distances. ALCDEFSubmit is a standalone 64-bit Windows program that is found in the ALCDEF subdirectory under the version 12 Programs directory. It never uses the Windows registry. Instead, all settings are in INI files that are found in the version 12 INI files ALCDEF subdirectory. There are 2 types of profiles. One is an extended set of specific information used by all MPO software. The other profile is used by ALCDEFSubmit and stores a small set of default values. The ALCDEF standard urges submitting sky, not differential magnitudes. This is done automatically if you use the CompStar selector in MPO Canopus. The CompStar magnitudes should all be from the same catalog and magnitude band. For example, V from the APAS catalog or Sloan R from the Atlas star catalog. Differential magnitudes can be submitted, but to make them as useful as possible, the metadata block for each light curve block should set a value for the diff0mag keyword. This value should not be an arbitrary one, but when applied to the differential values, gives a good approximation of the sky magnitude of the target. Every metadata block has some required information that is usually the same for every metadata block. The purpose of the core information section of the main form is to provide those common data. When ALCDEFSubmit runs for the first time, it tries to get core information from the user profile it last used. If there isn't a profile, default settings are used. You should always review and correct the settings in the core information section before generating submission files. Once the core information is correct, it can be saved in an INI file found in the version 12 INI files ALCDEF subdirectory, which is not the same directory where the program is found. Multiple profiles can be created if working with datasets from other observers, or when the core information changes for subsets of the full dataset being submitted. When ALCDEFSubmit closes, it remembers which INI file was being used for the core information. It reloads that file when it starts again. Reading the MPO configuration settings is done just the first time that ALCDEFSubmit runs. To save space on the remote database, entry constants were introduced into the standard. These are shortened names or aliases that refer to common entries such as the contact name and information or extended comment lines. Only pre-registered entry constants will be recognized by the website. To see the current set of recognized constants, click the Constants button. The form that appears is read-only and provides a link to request one or more entry constants. Generally, constants shouldn't be necessary. The only time a constant makes good sense is if there's a repeating lengthy list of observers and/or comments required for every light curve block, and there is a large number of blocks being submitted. This screenshot shows core information that does not use entry constants. Note that the contact name is a name only. It should be the person submitting the data and who can be contacted by a researcher using the entry in the Contact Info field. At a minimum, the Contact Info field contains the email of the data submitter, but it can also include a postal address. If including the email, it's preferred that it be at the beginning of the field and that it is surrounded by square brackets. The observers list should include only people who were actively involved at the location given in the core information. If working with data from multiple locations, create and use a separate core profile for each location or set of observers. Enter one comment per line. Press Enter to start a new line. Try to keep lines to no more than 80 characters. If needed, create one or more comment lines to hold an extended comment. Overall, the total length of all comment lines must be less than 2,000 characters. Before you begin, confirm which photometry database is being used. The default is the photometry.sdb file in the version 12 database directory. A separate tutorial covers how databases work in version 12. If the data you want to use to generate an ALCDEF submission file are not in the default database, click the button to the right of the database entry field and locate the database file needed to proceed.
To get started, click the Sessions button at lower left of the form. This displays the Select Sessions form. The table on the left shows the available sessions in the current database. This table should look familiar to MPO Canopus users. For those not familiar, it lists the name and mid-date time for all the sessions in the PHSesh table in the database. Use the search field to find a specific session by entering a full or partial name and then click the flashlight button. Note the use of %sign as a wildcard and that the search is not restricted to just numbers or letters. Once the table is positioned on an object to be in the ALCDEF file, click the Filter checkbox. This restricts the list to those matching the same entries in the object column. The list's background turns green, indicating that the table is filtered. Checking the filter box enables the small button next to the Add button. This is used to set the orbital elements for the object, which are required to generate the ALCDEF files. Click the button to see the asteroid lookup form. The search options are limited to number or name. Click OK once you have located and selected the object. Remember that this object must be the target of all the selected sessions. After setting the orbital elements, you must select which sessions are to be included in the submission. The previous step only limited the list to sessions with the same name. This step selects the specific sessions to be included. Go through the list and, one by one, Ctrl+click each session you want to include in the report. Note that selected sessions have a different background color, and there is a dot in the far left fixed column. Unfortunately, you cannot select a range of sessions using the familiar Shift+click. Click Add once you have selected all the sessions to include in the report. The selected sessions now appear in the right-hand checklist box. This gives you a final chance. short of going back several steps to edit the list of sessions. You can add more sessions to the list, either for the same object or for different objects. If for the same object, add to the list of selected sessions in the left-hand table. You won't need to reload the orbital elements, simply click the Add button again. Duplicate sessions are ignored. If for a different object, uncheck the filter checkbox and go through the process of finding sessions and selecting them. You will have to load the set of elements for the new object. This does not alter the elements for previously added objects. Click OK once you have all the sessions you want to include in the report. This returns you to the main form.
Note that the Sessions button label includes the number of sessions that were selected. Before generating the ALCDEF files, set the status of the Submit PDS checkbox. Check the box to give explicit permission for the data to be included in the full ALCDEF submission to the NASA Planetary Data System. Uncheck the box to submit the data to the ALCDEF database, which is still available to the public, but not include them in the NASA version. Submitting data to the PDS means that they will be vetted when the compilation goes through an annual review process. Afterwards, the new compilation is indexed in the SAO NASA ADS system. Whether or not you choose to include your data for the PDS, they will still be openly accessible. This includes personal information such as your email and, if included, your postal address. Limit submissions to the minimum required to be useful. Once everything on the main form is verified, and there is at least one session to process, click the Create Files button. This displays the file generation form. There are several settings on this form to be made before generating the ALCDEF files. First is the One Object per File checkbox. If that box is checked, each unique object's data are saved to a separate file. Also, the base entry field is set to Object and disabled. The resulting file names will substitute the word object with the object's number and name. If the box is not checked, the base entry control is enabled. Enter a common prefix for the one or more files that will be generated. Each generated file can have multiple light curve blocks for multiple objects. A combined file contains a minimum of 1,000 lines, but in no case will a light curve block be split between two files. A date or dates can be added to the end of each file name by choosing Current or Sessions from the drop-down list. The date and times are formatted using the year, month, date, underscore, hour, minute, second. The current setting uses the current date and time in all file names. The session setting includes the date and time of the earliest session in the file, followed by the date and time of the latest session in the file. All ALCDEF files have the text TXT extension. Before generating the files, choose the directory where they'll be saved. The default is the version 12 ALCDEF directory. If the specified directory does not exist, it is automatically created. To avoid entering a path with illegal characters, the entry field is disabled. You must click the button to its right to display a directory selection form. The files cannot be moved to another directory using ALCDEFSubmit. They can be renamed after being generated. That's covered in a moment. If the overwrite box is checked, an existing file with the same name will be overwritten with the new file. If the box is not checked, a unique number is appended to the new file name. If the show log box is checked, then after all the files are generated, the processing log is displayed in a memo field of a pop-up dialog. The contents of the file can be saved. They are not saved automatically.
Click the Generate button to create the files. The progress bar at lower right shows the status of the process. It will change only if the processing takes more than a couple of seconds. The list on the left shows the names of the files that were generated. Click on an item in the list to display its statistics. If one object per file was checked, the first and last objects are the same. The controls are read-only, meaning that they cannot be edited. The text editor on the right side shows the contents of the file. This is a live editor, similar to Windows Notepad, and so the contents can be changed. Do so with extreme caution, otherwise the file might be rejected by the ALCDEF site. If changes are made, the Save button under the editor is enabled. Click the button to overwrite the existing file. To rename one of the files using the ALCDEF program, click on it in the list and then click the button to the right of the name field. This displays a file save dialog where the new file name can be entered. This form allows changing the directory, but, again, the original path is used. The only thing that changes is the file name. Click the Save button on the dialog to rename the file. After it closes, the new name is displayed in the name field. To repeat, edit the contents of a file with caution, and if changes are made, be sure to save the revised file. If the report generator form is closed and then reopened, the current list of sessions is available, although it may have changed if the Select Sessions form was used in between.
Be sure to visit the ALCDEF site and download the latest standards PDF. If you don't use MPO Canopus and have a simple text file of Julian date magnitude pairs, you can still submit to the ALCDEF database by using the simple ALCDEF protocols. The standards documentation covers using that site, and the ALCDEF homepage includes a link to the entry form to be used.
This concludes the tutorial for using the ALCDEFSubmit program. More tutorials are on the MPO YouTube channel by using the URL on the screen. Please subscribe so that you can know when new tutorials are available. If you have any questions or comments, please send them to the MPO software forum on IO Groups. Please note, you cannot attach files to messages. If necessary, you will be asked to send them offline.